And I told you we're not going to study a book. We're going to talk about the Christmas story, but we're not talking about the Christmas story the way we've ever had it before. We're going to spend a little time this week on where this Jesus thing started. And we're
Hmm.
talking, instead of Jesus, we're talking about Old Testament and we're talking about Messiah. Then we're also going to discuss quite a bit about, even today and at this time, what's the deal about these Jewish people that have never believed in Jesus, don't believe in Jesus, and in the days of the Old Testament and the prophets, there still were those priests, and they still were strong when Jesus comes later. Uh, that's saying that the Messiah has not come yet.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty sure that most of us have never had a Bible study on that kind of thing before. You don't spend a lot of time why these people didn't believe in Jesus and what are the rationale. We're going to try to break it down so the strength, I think, of your philosophy and your great reading of the Bible is that I think you'll live through this with strength and come out
Mhm.
stronger than you are already, but it's something to look at. So when I first looked, I found this document that said, okay, right away, Genesis 3:15, Psalms 2:2, Isaiah 7:14, Micah 5:2 mentions the Messiah in the Old Testament. Looked a little farther, found another one that had those same ones, but more. So they had Genesis 3:15, Numbers 24:17, Psalms 2, and on through there. We're gonna address some of those as we go through this today fairly quickly. But again, you can see that when people say, "Well, I don't like to read the Old Testament," there is a lot of things that are prepping. It's like the introduction to the preamble to the New Testament. You'll find
Hmm.
that Jewish people that do not believe in Jesus, they're not uh, the Nazarene Jews believe in Jesus. They used to say that Messianic Jews believed in Jesus, but I found by study that that's kind of true, not always true. There are a Messianic group that don't believe in Jesus also. So the Nazarenes are the ones that believe in Jesus. And then you've got the ones that don't have any belief at all of any other Messiah,
Hmm.
other than that there's one coming, but it hasn't come yet. So, how many years from Adam and Eve? We talk about how we're waiting for Jesus to return. It's been about a little over 2,000 years since Jesus was on this earth. How many
Hmm.
years was it from Adam and Eve to the birth of Jesus Christ?
About
Hmm.
4,000 years.
Anybody
Hmm.
else?
Wow. Quick answer. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anybody going to debate that?
Hmm.
No, I guess that'd be as accurate as
Hmm.
some of the discussions I had in
Well, I sent
school.
this answer to
Okay.
David, so that's why I had it so quick.
Yeah.
I
David.
I would say 4,000 what I've heard from
Huh.
like a couple of pastors or
Yeah.
whatever, and I
Yeah.
kind of blew that off as is one pastor said, he says his best I can figure, he said, and that's a quote, is 4,000, but I don't
Huh.
think there was any science to it.
Yeah.
Well, that is it. It's 4,000 years. And when you talk about patience and
Wow.
perseverance, it's a long wait for those people. So you've
Hmm.
got prophets that it's still unseen, but you have
Yeah.
prophets that are coming along and saying, there will be a Messiah, and this is how it'll be. This is how they'll be born. This is where they're going to live.
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
lot of the things are said through the prophets, but nothing that is, concrete foundation. Yeah. So, and it's very difficult for us today to believe in something you can't see. The unseen is so hard
Yeah.
for us, and it wouldn't have been any easier back then. But you did
Yeah.
have those people that they were putting their hope in Jesus Christ and the
Hmm.
Messiah. So those that were slaves had that day where they're hoping that Jesus, the Messiah, would come. But
Mhm.
their reason for him coming was a different reason than what we think
Yeah.
about him. They wanted a king that would come and take care of this, whoever they were, Greeks, Romans, Persians, and
Mhm.
take care of them, and so they would have freedom. And what you have later with the Moses and the Ten Commandments
Mhm.
is a relationship to all those things they had to endure as a slave. They now would no longer have to endure as with the Ten Commandments. So this
Mhm.
next thing is a video. It's a little while, but it's good. This gentleman is kind of funny, but what he is he's
Mhm.
actually interviewing a rabbi, and the rabbi is giving him reasons why there are no Jesus and there is
Mhm.
no Messiah, and he's responding to it. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
get ready to listen, like Charlie Kirk used to say, put the seatbelt, strap it on, because we're ready to go.
All right.
One day, there I am scrolling or feeding or whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing on your phone, and suddenly on the right hand side, a video of a Chevra Rav. This has nothing to do with a Don McLean song. A Chevra Rav is a social commentator rabbi, one who knows the books of Moses and the books of the prophets and studies society, puts them together, and la, you have a Chevra Rav. I watched this video with a great deal of interest because haven't you always wondered, why is it that the Jewish people reject Jesus? How is it that their understanding of Messiah could be so off that they can't see what should be as plain as the nose on my face? And I'm telling you, this is very, very plain for anyone to see. Let us take a look at the Chevra Rav, Moishi Chaim. Sorry, I keep spitting on you. Moishi Chaim presenting 10 principles about the Jewish Messiah, the one that many, not all, but many Jews are still waiting for. And I'm telling you, you're going to have a Bonnie Tyler moment. This is a heartache, nothing but a heartache, because you're going to hear these 10 principles that Messiah is to embody, and you're going to go, starting with principle number 1.
Number 1, Mashiach will be a human being born of a man and woman. It will not be an immaculate conception. He'll be born to a man and a woman, a binary relationship, man and woman conceiving a human being.
That sure sounds like Jesus, but Moishi Chaim would say this was what he called immaculate conception. Always need to be careful with that phrase, because some would believe that that was Mary's conception, which apparently was the end result of an infinite regress of immaculate conceptions. Protestants, some would say, no, that's Jesus being conceived, not with a physical union between Joseph and Mary, but the Holy Spirit overshadowing Mary, so that the Messiah would be both God and man. Why? Because we need both. If we don't have a man to represent us, well, we can't have our sins forgiven. And if we don't have a sacrifice that is worthy, then God won't forgive us. We need a God-man, and that is what Jesus is. But Jewish people, they just bristle at the idea of this Messiah being both man and God. It is good when you run into a Jewish person who thinks, well, that's just impossible. That's ridiculous. God is one, and we can't see God. Wait a second. Let's consider just 3 theophanies in the Old Testament. Number 1, Moses. Number 2, Joshua. Number 3, you've got Daniel. Number 4, I know I said 3. Number 4, you've got Balaam, and there are others where God actually appeared in human form to a human being. So Jesus, being God, appearing in human form, should be nothing new to the Jewish person. Furthermore, didn't Isaiah predict that God would be with us, which is why we sing, O come, Emmanuel, we can help a Jewish person understand it is not ridiculous, and frankly, it's not unique that God appeared in flesh. He did it in the Old Testament. He did it in the New, in the person of the Lord Jesus Christ. Doesn't it hurt? Principle number 2.
Number 2, Mashiach will be a very righteous person. He will be somebody completely connected to the values of the Torah. He will live with awe of Hashem. He'll be somebody, an upright person, and he's present in every generation, like we mentioned, as a sleeper cell Mashiach.
Well, that raises a couple of questions, specifically regarding principle number 1. Principle number 2 is that Mashiach, the Messiah, the anointed one, the chosen one, would be perfectly righteous and present in all generations. Who is both? Who are both of those things? God and God alone. How can a man be perfectly righteous and he can be in every generation, present with everybody for all time? Those are attributes of God, which is why when you hear this list of 10 principles that embody Messiah, it just breaks your heart.
Number 3, Mashiach will embody the highest standards of morality. It's very important. Mashiach will live and practice what he preaches.
Messiah will embody perfect morality. Who but God can embody perfect morality? Answer, ain't nobody, not now, not ever, except God himself, which is why it should not come as a shock to Jewish people that Messiah had to be both man and God.
Number 4, Mashiach will be the king of the entire world. He will be a king. There will be a monarchy restored to the world. Mashiach will be king, and he will be accepted by both the nation of Israel and all the nations of the world alike.
Sound like anybody you know? When Jesus was crucified, what was the sign that was nailed above his head? That he is the King of the Jews, and we know that he is King of kings and Lord of lords. How can a Jewish person miss that? The answer in this case might be eschatology. They think that Messiah, when he comes, he's going to reign. He's going to set up a kingdom, and he's going to reign on this planet as king. You and I as Christians know there are now not yet prophecies, and Jewish people are familiar with these. There are prophecies that are fulfilled in bits now and later. For instance, we've got in Isaiah that there would be a child born of a virgin. No doubt it was at that time, and it was at Jesus' time. Now, not yet. And that is true with the reign of Jesus Christ. Whatever your eschatological position is, it doesn't matter, because ultimately we all agree that Jesus is going to reign, but it's not going to be a monarchy. Nope, those don't work. This is going to be a flat-out theonomy.
5, as chief arbiter of justice, Mashiach will have an awesome and acute sense of smell to ascertain truth and falsehood.
Did any man speak such as he? What did the woman at the well say about this man she had met? He just knows everything. He knows my heart. And isn't that exactly what the Gospels tell us? That Jesus knew what was in the heart of man? That descriptor, that particular principle that this Chevre Rev believes must apply to Messiah, was clearly fulfilled in Jesus Christ. And I know perhaps what you're thinking at the moment. Hey, you're basing a fair amount of your fulfillments on the principles of Jesus Christ based on the New Testament. No, I'm basing all of it on the teachings of the New Testament. So if a Jewish person wants to argue, hey, I just don't know about the veracity of your scriptures, starting with Matthew, I can dig that and we can deal with that. But the reality is, the right-hand side of the book perfectly describes all of the principles that Messiah must embody on the left side of the book.
Number 6, Mashiach will have a very keen ability to advise each and every person how to rectify and improve his or her life, each according to his or her individual abilities.
Did Jesus embody the ability to talk to people with what their need is? We see this over and over in the New Testament, don't we? When Jesus spoke to the Pharisees, he told them exactly what they needed to hear. When Jesus spoke to the disciples, he described them perfectly. In fact, he even gave them nicknames that described their personality traits. Principle 7.
Number 7, Mashiach will disseminate faith in God. He will speak about emunah. He will speak about being connected to God.
John 14:1, anybody? Do not let your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me, a statement of equality. Furthermore, we see Jesus himself describing his lordship and his equality with God repeatedly in the Gospels. You see him delivering the I am statements. You see him being worshiped. You see him forgiving sins. These are only things that God can do. Furthermore, if you want to go a little further on the right-hand side of the book, you can find all kinds of divinity statements about Jesus Christ. Consider Hebrews 1, consider Colossians 1, and then sometimes you find rather subtle ones like 1 Thessalonians, which talks about the gospel of not Christ, the gospel of God. Other times, Paul refers to it as the gospel of Christ. Why? Because God and Christ are the same. Principle number 8.
Number 8, Mashiach will spread the knowledge of Torah on a much deeper level than can be grasped today. He's going to reveal the Torah of Attic. He's going to reveal the Torah of ancient days, of ancient times. Deeper than we can even imagine now. Mashiach is going to reveal a whole other dimension of the secrets of Torah.
You've heard it said of old, thou shalt not commit adultery, but I'm going to help you understand that rightly. This is exactly what Jesus did in the Sermon on the Mount alone.
Number 9, Mashiach will reveal chesed, kindness. Everyone will enjoy good health and abundant wealth. There'll be no shortage of money in times of Mashiach.
Now, not yet. Someday, Jesus' reign will be perfect. Nobody will have need for nothing because they've got everything in him. That's why Revelation tells us there'll be no more sorrow, no more tears, no more lack, no more want. Why? Because when Messiah returns again, he will fulfill that principle perfectly. And yet, didn't he do that now? Feeding thousands, literally obliterating disease. There was nobody that queued up for the Messiah that he did not heal. How's about the little children sitting in his lap, which was below the dignity of a rabbi? Why? Because Jesus is filled with chesed.
Number 10, Mashiach will reveal the awesome power of song and prayer. And will spread this as the means of communication with God, prayer and song.
The night he was betrayed, after he had given thanks, in other words, after he had prayed and sung a hymn. Lord, teach us to pray. They heard this man pray like no other, and we know that he prayed a lot because he regularly woke up early to go find a private place to do so. Furthermore, on the night of his passion, he prayed intensely while the other people slept.
Detective Friel, can you tell us what's happening here?
Yeah, what's happening here is a clear demonstration of the noetic effect of the fall. Genesis 2, Paul elaborates in Romans chapter 3. Jeremiah tells us that everybody's heart is deceitful and wicked. What's going on here? Sin.
Any comments?
Oh,
Did that affect you at all?
That was good.
very sound.
It was long, but I had to show the whole thing because it really depicted a lot of things that I think support where we're from anyway, and it clears some things up. So the next chart, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say just briefly, I had a good friend who passed away, and he super strong Christian, but he didn't believe that Jesus was God, part God. And I had many talks with him about that. But then he went to Africa as a missionary and he performed miracles. I mean, God so used him. So, but he pointed that there's a lot of scriptures that make it appear that he wouldn't be God, but a lot of them that would appear that he is God. So, anyway, interesting.
Yeah. Keep in mind that when we get into the New Testament, and this is something that was eye-opening for me, it probably will be for you too, is that Matthew and Luke tell the Christmas story. They do not tell them alike. They have different things in different parts of their story as you go through. One has the Magi, the other has the sheep herders, frankincense and myrrh. One has that, the other one doesn't have that at all. One has them escaping to Egypt, the other one does not. That Mary goes to Nazareth several times, but does not go to Egypt. Joseph disappears. And if you go through these and read these, which I won't go through all of them, you'll have them in your video when you get it. But you can see now, what does that mean? That means a couple things. One that I found is that both of these people, being humans of the flesh, if we all stand outside and we witness a crime, and then they start interviewing each one of us about what we saw, we're going to tell you probably different stories from just us. And we're all very similar people, but we will give not exactly the same story. Some of that you'll see in this. Matthew was somebody that was a tax collector that was giving his views of the birth of Jesus Christ. And this is a long time after Jesus actually was born. Now you have Luke. Luke is the one, as you've probably been told, is the guy that really deals with details. So a lot of what he has was done by him doing interviews. He may have even interviewed Mary's viewpoint of what happened. And he took notes. So when you read, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying they have different people. So you're going to get you're going to get a general story that's similar, but it isn't going to be the same. But it still is a strength. I was talking to one of our people from our church that actually puts together the Christmas story every year. I was explaining to him, that what they actually do is he's well aware of it. And that's Marty, Marv. He's well aware of it. And what they do is they actually combine those things that are both in Matthew and in Luke. So everybody gets a taste of both when they do it. But if they did just Luke or they did just Matthew, there'd be some things left out that normally people would say, well, why didn't they do this? Why wasn't there? Well, if you read the New Testament, you find out they aren't there in some of those cases.
The fact that the two are different is kind of proof of the validity because they didn't come from the same script.
Yeah.
Talking points.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought there was strength in learning this than weakness. And I didn't think that that's what I would use is saying, well, now I know, they don't know what they're talking, they just made it up. So the
Hmm.
Messiah in the Old Testament, subtitle prophecies, promises, and foreshadowings. What I wanted to say is that in the Old Testament, when we talked about the seen, the unseen, well, there was a lot of prophecies, there's a lot of promises, and there's foreshadowing. You saw that in that last video when we talked about that, when he was bringing that up. By the way, did you like that guy?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
He was interesting.
he'd made a good lawyer.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In some ways, I'm amazed. I actually got that video off of YouTube. I'm surprised they had it because he
Yeah.
does make some sarcastic comments once in a while,
Hmm.
but he got by with it. Background image of scrolls or Hebrew texts. They did go back in those time and they looked at scrolls. You looked at the Dead Sea Scrolls, which they just recently, when I say within the last 50 years, found. And then you look at all the Hebrew text that was written. So you really didn't have a Bible that you were saying go back to God's word. You were going back in the Old Testament to those things. The definition of Messiah, Hebrew, you heard him say Mashiach, anointed one, role, king, priest, deliverer, purpose to trace the promise of God pointing to Christ. Anything that made you, what, is there anything in that video that any of these things made you feel stronger about?
I think so. He was telling us what we believe.
Yeah, every one of those he brought up.
And
But he clarified what king meant, what priest meant, what deliverer meant.
Right.
And where where we really are off base between beliefs, between the Jewish belief and ours, is the Messiah. They see him as a king with a crown.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they see him as a conqueror of the enemies, I think, don't they? The king that takes away the opponents.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the ultimate, which I may have here later, but I'll bring it up anyway. Yeah, the ultimate is the day that Jesus throws all of the fallen angels and Satan down the deep hole, and they're gone forever. The first promise, Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head. What's that mean?
Hmm.
Who's the
Jesus.
Yeah,
seed?
Jesus. Right.
Jesus.
Jesus.
He would
And
crush him when he
Jesus,
died on the cross.
and he crushed him.
Yep.
So he has
Hmm.
no longer any power over God or Jesus. Patriarchal promises, Genesis 12:3, blessings to all nations through Abraham's seed. That's the divine. When you look at the Old Testament, everything started with Abraham and his line of everybody. You'll make a nation out of the people, and so that's the blessings of all nations through Abraham and those seeds. Genesis 49:10, the scepter will not depart from Judah, messianic line established. What's
right.
that mean?
Well, it means that there is a king, and it will not depart from Judah, and which would I take it as Jerusalem, but I guess
Right, you're close. You're actually part of. You're right. What they're talking about is David. You got Abraham and you got David. David
okay.
was started in the scepter of David's strength was in Judah, and messianic line established that the Jesus would come from that line of David, which
Okay.
was Mary, and so Mary from that line itself. When you when they talked about Mary and the Immaculate Conception, you have two different. So I won't say which one is right or wrong. Well, some people say the Immaculate Conception is the Holy Ghost and Mary and the birth of Jesus. Others don't believe that. They think the Immaculate Conception was really Mary's mother and that it goes back in line where that actually happened before, and she's part of an Immaculate Conception herself.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's real weird.
Well, that's there.
So
I
they were
want you to
both
know that.
They were
Well,
woke back then too.
it's interesting that the rabbi was really talking about a super David kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in this kind of in the same line, but with greater powers.
I have a very good friend that's Catholic, and he almost gets distraught with me when he asks me why I don't worship Mary. And that's one of the things that I believe that Mary is that Immaculate Conception herself, and that she was, and that makes her different than my comment is she's of the flesh, and his comment is no, she's not.
He uses the word
But,
worship.
pardon?
He uses the actual word worship.
Well, they do.
Yeah,
pray to Mary.
they certainly do, and that's I guess that's what I grew up with, and
Yeah, that's no
my
secret.
my grandma and stuff. I mean, you don't want to date a Catholic girl because they pray to Mary, and that's
I
a
think
direct quote.
I think a more accurate way is they look to Mary for intercession and pray for them and the saints, but they're not supposed to be worshiping
Right.
You
Mary.
pray
I
for
mean,
forgiveness. You pray for forgiveness from Mary, just
yeah,
like you
that
do
we
Jesus.
were, I was raised, and that wasn't, so it's kind of different maybe for even within the Catholic
That's
Church,
what I
'cause
said.
that was never, um, we were, Mary was like another component to the saints that
Yeah.
as Jerry said, is intercession. The,
Okay.
the interesting part too is that you realize, I think I was telling Gary this, that it was the virgin, why the Mexican culture converted to Catholicism was because of Lady of the Guadalupe, which is Mary appearing to them at a site in Mexico. And over 70% of the people converted because of that. So it was a powerful message to convert to Catholicism.
Let me throw something out to you guys. I just came across, just getting into it, something called the Forbidden Books of the Bible. And as we all know, there are a lot of scrolls, if you will, that were not added into the Bible that we use today. That I don't know who it was, some of the archbishops or whoever it was decided what was going to be in the Bible and what wasn't. Well, I'm just getting into it, so I can't talk too much. But on the forbidden books, that's what they're talking about, the ones that did not make the Bible. There is, I'm just getting into it, uh, scripture, if you want to call it, or a story of Mary being Mary's mother, and Mary was an immaculate conception. So I can't talk a lot about it, but I think maybe that's where some of that comes from. It's kind of funny because it's talking about Jesus when he was little
Yeah.
and a
Thanks,
bunch of
Marv.
things.
You see, I told you guys I wasn't lying to you.
Yeah. So
Still weird.
anyway, if you get a chance, it's called the Forbidden Books of the Bible. Some God, I can't remember who did it now, but if you search, you'll find it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read it. It's a good book. You'll find what I found. This is my own take. As I finished it, many of the books that were thrown out were written by women,
Yeah,
like Mary
Mary's got one in
Magdalene.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, Mary Magdalene's book was thrown out.
Hmm.
So there was a bias to females writing anything about Jesus at the time. But yeah, take a look at it. It's a good book.
Wow.
The next one is what we're trying to show here, and I quickly am going through it. But see, each one of these places in the Old Testament, I've been naming people: David, Abraham. Now we're going to talk about. You'll see that Moses brings up also the Lamb, which is Jesus. So he's talking about Jesus. You have the covenant with David in 2 Samuel as he goes through, and I just finished that another Bible study we're in is that where they talk completely about Jesus and the messianic king and imagery and fulfilled in Jesus, and David is aware of it. David knows that he's the King of Kings, but he is only a king because of God. So the Psalms are the songs and poetry that are sung about the king, the suffering, and the priest forever in the order of Melchizedek, which is a priest. Major prophets, Isaiah. Now, this is one you can go to when you look at it, but if you look at each one of these, this is what's amazing. I mean, you're talking hundreds of years before Jesus is born, and he is making predictions of not only the birth to a virgin, but he's telling you where that's going to happen. And it's amazing that Isaiah had these kind of premonitions from God to be able to say these things this many years ahead of time.
Do you guys know how many prophecies there were about Jesus in the Bible?
We're waiting for you to tell us.
It's over 300, but I think it's around 350. And one of them, besides this birth in Bethlehem, which he had no control over, of course, was that he would die on a tree, which when the prophecy was given, they didn't even do crucifixions.
Mm.
Well, what if I told you there was no inns in Bethlehem at the time?
It's
You mean
true.
Holiday Inns?
They had no room for him for him to be born in an inn. There was no such thing as an inn
Wow.
or a hotel. You may have
Yeah.
found one. What you had in those days was they were very hospitable people, and when you went to a city, you would find somebody had a lot of rooms in their house and you could stay in. But Bethlehem was so small, they probably didn't have that. What they probably had is they had a major room where you would eat, another room where you would sleep, and another room for the animals to bring them in out of the weather. And people that would stop by that would say, "Hey, do you have a room?" They wouldn't let you sleep in their room, but you could sleep with the animals.
Well, like you said, I learned something today.
That's that. I won't even charge you for that one. I
No,
didn't have that on
Pretty
the
good.
slides anywhere.
Gotta
All right,
remember,
things of the-
Gary
Huh?
was a teacher. I was going to say, you got to remember, Gary was a teacher, so there will be a quiz.
There'll be a test coming up
Yeah.
again. Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think the Catholic Bible might have 73 books too, says 66, because I saw one time they had a question, how many books in the Bible one place, and they had choices, and I said 66, they had the wrong answer, was 73. So Catholic
Yeah.
Bible must have 73 books. I take it.
Well, Catholic had a few more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Themes of the Messiah: King, prophet, priest, suffering, and deliverer. Those are all things that are themes that when they talk about any of these lines, they talk about that are going to come with the Messiah as part of the package. So the conclusion, the Old Testament consistently points to Christ fulfilled in the New Testament. So again, like I told you, it's like that introduction, and it continues to, even though it's much longer, it takes longer because it's 4,000 years. So you get a long time to really hear about the Messiah. You have people that obviously are impatient and patient, and the invitation to see Jesus as the promised Messiah was continually talked about in the Old Testament. So, discussion questions: how do these prophecies strengthen faith?
Like a puzzle, putting it all together. It's
Yeah.
the foretold, and it comes true. And I think the interesting part for the Jewish people that didn't take it, you got to remember in history. I mean, he, in their views, was going against a lot of what their so-called laws were at the time, and so I think that just continued over history, and that's why they don't believe he's the Messiah, because he broke some of their laws in their views.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and I agree with totally what you just. Yeah, I found myself in doing a lot of reading. I still find when I went through this time, I have what I call aha moments, and I go, aha, that clears that up. And now I understand that a lot better. And so I had those moments when I went through and looked at this.
Yeah.
We can tell you're not Oriental, or it would be aso moment.
Yeah. Eureka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eureka.
And yeah, I won't even bring up that if you had a speech impediment, also means something different. So
I know.
Yeah.
Which messianic prophecy speaks the most to you?
Mm.
Anything Jesus has done or did, or any messianic prophecy.
Wasn't there one for him raising from the dead?
Yeah.
That would probably be.
Lazarus. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean resurrection of Jesus.
Oh, resurrection of Jesus. Yeah.
There's probably one for that, I think.
Yeah, well, that he would be raised from the dead. There is. I'll tell you the one that hits me the most is the lady at the well.
Mm.
Jesus knows everything about you already.
That's a good one.
You wouldn't
Oh,
have to
yeah.
you wouldn't have to sit down and give him your life history because he already knows it.
What was that specific prophecy? Do you know, Gary?
Well, that's where she was sitting at the well, and he sat down. He chose not to go with the guys to go get food, and he goes to the well.
Yeah.
He sits down with her. She's had like 5 husbands, and she's being a little bit, timid about telling him about herself. And he basically says, "You don't need to be timid." And I'm putting it in a nutshell for you, but he says, "You
Yeah.
don't need to be timid. I already know about you. I know about all your husbands, and I know the man that you're living with right now is not your husband."
Yeah.
So she gets up, runs into town, and goes, "Hey, I met this guy, and he
Yeah.
didn't even tell him anything about me, and he already knows everything about me."
Yeah. Well, I knew that story, but you say there's a prophecy about that event?
That is a prophecy. That is told by
Oh, a prophetic.
in the Bible. Yeah.
Prophetic from Jesus, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
How do we share these truths today?
I think a big thing is to not have people discount the Old Testament, but use it as a tie-in to the New Testament. Because oftentimes you hear, especially charismatic preachers, say that's old stuff. Don't pay any attention. It's the New Testament is what counts. But making the link to the Old Testament gives a lot of validity.
Yeah, I think you have to pull out because I think part of the stories and the history related in the Old Testament and some of the events that occurred, that takes them away from really understanding the parts that were the prophecies.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's where people misunderstand it because they look at it as, well, that's just a history book part.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of saying, no, that set the stage for what's going to happen.
Exactly.
I remember an old minister that I used to follow used to say, if you don't understand the Old Testament, you can't understand the New.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great point that I want all of us to stand up for, because when we do hear once in a while, and I know we have one I don't attend that Bible study on Friday mornings anymore. We used to have somebody in that Bible study that said, I don't like the Old Testament. Although lately I heard him say he wants more Old Testament. So
Yeah.
but he said, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And I know you know who I'm talking about, Mark, but lately
sir.
what I've been reading is that he wants more now from the Old Testament, which is a good move. But before, he didn't like reading it. Too hard to understand, he said. So,
Well, I think him questioning the Old Testament and us studying parts of it, I think a light's starting to come on.
yeah.
Eureka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be Matthew or Luke. Take your pick.
Everybody knows the story of the first Christmas, right? Jesus was born in Bethlehem to a virgin named Mary, who is engaged to Joseph. The baby Jesus was wrapped in cloth, placed in a manger, and had visits from wise men and shepherds. There were angels, there was a special star, and there was even an evil king. And that about sums it up, right? Well, not exactly. As it turns out, the story of Jesus' birth is only mentioned in 2 out of our 4 Gospels, Matthew and Luke. Many people just assume that Matthew and Luke say basically the same thing about Jesus' birth, with just a few different details sprinkled in for good measure. But if you put Matthew's Gospel side by side with Luke's Gospel and compare Jesus' birth narratives, you will find that these 2 Gospels actually only have a few things in common, and they have a ton of differences. So what's going on here? Well, let's look at Matthew first. Matthew's Gospel starts out with a genealogy of Jesus' family traced through his father's lineage. And you'll notice that the genealogy is broken down into 3 major sections, all containing 14 generations. Matthew, in Matthew 1:17, says this: Thus there were 14 generations in all, from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the Babylonian exile, and 14 from the Babylonian exile to the Messiah. 14, 14, 14. Luke includes a genealogy in his gospel as well in Luke chapter 3, but Luke's genealogy looks quite a bit different from Matthew's. First of all, Luke's is a lot longer. Luke's genealogy traces Jesus' lineage all the way back to Adam, and actually it even goes all the way back to God himself. And within Luke's long genealogy, he includes the genealogy and the number of generations from Joseph to Abraham, just like Matthew does. But there's a pretty significant difference in these two genealogies. First of all, it's not separated into 3 chunks of 14 generations. Secondly, Matthew's genealogy tells us that the number of generations from Jesus to Abraham was 42, because 14 plus 14 plus 14 equals 42. Luke's gospel doesn't say it was 42 generations from Jesus to Abraham, but 54. And if that's not enough, the people within these two genealogies are seemingly different. For example, who is Joseph's father? Is it Heli, as Luke suggests, or is it Jacob, as Matthew suggests? Now, why would this be? This seems very strange considering that most Bible scholars believe that Luke used Matthew's gospel to help him write his gospel. So what's the deal with the different numbers and the different names within these two genealogies? Well, there are a number of theories about why this is, and I'm not going to go into all of them in this video, but it will be sufficient to point out that Matthew has a secret meaning or secret purpose hidden within his genealogy. Now, this may be a secret for many of us today, but this was probably not a secret for most of the original hearers and readers of the Gospels. So here is the secret hidden within Matthew's genealogy. Remember the 14, 14, 14? Well, the number 14 is not insignificant, and it's certainly no accident. As it turns out, in ancient Hebrew, you can assign a numerical value to individual Hebrew letters, kind of like if I assigned a 1 to the letter A, or 2 to the letter B, and so on. This was the case in ancient Hebrew as well. The letters within words and names could be added up, and you could get a numerical value. For an example, if I continued having A equal 1 and B equal 2, and I wanted to use my name as an example, here is what I would get. My name is Luke, so the L would be 12, the U would be 21, the K would be 11, and the E would be 5. Then I could add them up and get my name's numerical value of 49. And in ancient Hebrew, this practice had a special name. It's called gematria. Now, in order to solve this mystery, we have to try and figure out the significance of the numerical value of 14. There are a number of different ways you can add things up to equal 14, but not all of them spell something and not all of them are significant. But there is one. Dalet, Vav, Dalet. Dalet has the value of 4. Vav has the value of 6, and Dalet again has 4. So 4 plus 6 plus 4 equals 14. And what does Dalet, Vav, Dalet spell in Hebrew? Dawid, which is the Hebrew pronunciation for the name we English speakers call David. Bingo! That's Matthew's purpose. The 14 represents King David. King David, of course, is the second and most mighty king of Israel, and from whose lineage the Messiah was supposed to come. That's Matthew's purpose for why he structured his genealogy the way he did. He wants to show unequivocally that Jesus is the true Messiah because he comes from the true lineage of King David. 14, 14, 14. Need more proof? Check this out. In Matthew 1:20, when the angel appears to Joseph in a dream, the angel addresses Joseph not as Joseph, son of Jacob, but Joseph, son of David. And this is just the first way that Matthew and Luke differ from one another when they talk about the events in and around Jesus' birth. But there are many more. Like, did Joseph plan to divorce Mary when he found out she was pregnant? Matthew says yes. Luke doesn't mention this detail at all. Or how about this? How did Mary and Joseph figure out they were going to give birth to the Messiah? According to Matthew, an unnamed angel appeared to Joseph explaining the situation. But in Luke, the angel, now identified as Gabriel, appeared to Mary, not Joseph. There is no mention in Luke that an angel appeared to Joseph. Matthew tells us that Joseph and Mary did not consummate the marriage until after Jesus was born. Luke, again, leaves this detail out. The next major part where these two Gospels differ has to do with the travels that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus make. Matthew simply tells us that Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea. Then we learn that because Herod wanted to kill Jesus, they fled to Egypt until Herod died. Then, when Herod died, they tried to go back to Bethlehem, but were afraid to do so because Herod's son, Herod Archelaus, was reigning in Judea. So instead went to Nazareth in Galilee. So they went from Bethlehem to Egypt to Nazareth. Luke, however, gives us more travels, but then again, he leaves some out. Luke tells us in Luke chapter 1 that Mary, right after becoming pregnant, went from Nazareth in Galilee to the hill country of Judea to visit John the Baptist's parents, Elizabeth and Zachariah. And according to Luke 1:56, Mary stayed with them for 3 months, with no mention as to what Joseph was doing during this time. Then Luke tells us that when Mary was pregnant for 3 months, she traveled back home to Nazareth in Galilee. But in Luke, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus' travels don't stop there. In Luke chapter 2, we're told that Caesar Augustus wanted to take a census of the entire Roman world, and everyone was required to travel back to their ancestral hometown, which would have been in Judea again, in Bethlehem to be exact, because that is where King David was born. It was in Bethlehem that Mary gave birth to Jesus. Then we are told in Luke 2:22 that Mary and Joseph took Jesus to Jerusalem for the purification rites required by the law of Moses. Then after the purification process, Jesus and his parents returned home to Nazareth in Galilee. So in Luke's gospel, we get that Mary traveled from Nazareth to the hill country of Judea, then back to Nazareth, then back to Judea, to Bethlehem, then to Jerusalem, then back to Nazareth. Interesting that there is no mention of them traveling to Egypt whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, Matthew makes it sound like Joseph and Mary's real hometown was in Bethlehem, and they only wound up in Nazareth because they were trying to escape Herod's jurisdiction. Luke, on the other hand, makes it sound like Nazareth was their hometown, and they only wound up in Bethlehem because of the census. Interestingly, Matthew doesn't mention anything about a census at all. And Luke doesn't mention anything about Herod wanting to kill all newborn babies ages 2 and under. These are two very different stories. Also, Matthew mentions the Magi coming from the east to see the newborn king of the Jews. The Magi are, of course, the wise men that come and bring Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Luke, however, doesn't mention the wise men at all, but instead it's shepherds tending their fields by night that come to see Jesus in the end. Luke's gospel is the only gospel that mentions Jesus being wrapped in cloth and placed in a manger. Matthew doesn't mention this at all. So with all of these differences, what do these two gospels have in common? Well, both of these gospels agree that Jesus was born to a virgin named Mary. They both agree that Mary and Joseph were engaged to be married. They both agree that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and they both agree that in the end, somehow when Jesus was young, he wound up in Nazareth in Galilee. But that's it. Everything else in these two gospels are different. And most people don't even realize this until they line the two gospels up and analyze them bit by bit. Now, I'm not saying that one gospel is right and the other is wrong, and I'm also not saying that these gospels contain contradictions. What I am saying is that no matter how you look at it, these two gospels are different, and there's different information given in and around the circumstances of Jesus' birth. So this Christmas season, when you hear the stories of Jesus' birth, don't forget to ask yourself, does this story come from Matthew, Luke, or both? I think.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there because I don't want to get over the hour. I have put in some questions on Matthew's birth narrative. I'll show them so they'll show up on the video. You can take a look at them. And you can stop your video anytime. That's why I show them. All right, now I'm going to shut off the recording if I can, and I will. As soon as I get my cursor back here. There it is.